This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we're going to get started with some of the 9 days stuff, and then we will return to our laws of Shabbos topic. What are the 9 days? Fill me in. What's going on over here? What 9 days? Well, wait. Don't tell me restrictions. Tell me what it's about. Okay. It starts with the beginning of the month of Av. Okay, the Hebrew month of Av. And what's happening over here in the month of Av? Tragic day. What tragic day is there in the month of Av? Good. The destruction, not good, but yes, correct. The destruction of the first temple and the second temple. The first temple was built by King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, King David's son, and that stood for how many years? 410 years it stood. And that was then destroyed by Bavel, by the Babylonians, the Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. Okay? Then we went into the Babylonian, and that was destroyed on the date of Tish'a B'Av, the 9th day of the month of Av. We then were sent out into the Babylonian exile, which lasted for how long? 70 years. It lasted for 70 years. Which rabbinic holiday, thank you very much, which rabbinic holiday took place towards the end of that Babylonian exile? Was it Hanukkah? Hanukkah will come to soon. That was the holiday of Purim. The holiday of Purim starts with this big feast made by King Achashverosh. Why did he make this big feast? What was he celebrating?
That the Jews had not returned.
Good.
The exile had not ended.
Good. The Jews had not returned. The exile had not ended, meaning there was a prophecy that was well known. After 70 years, you will be redeemed. The question was, at what point do we start to count those 70 years? There were many different stages of this destruction. There was the ascent of the destructor, Nebuchadnezzar, of his rising to power. And the famous story of the handwriting on the wall. Where do we get that expression from? You have to read the handwriting on the wall. Where does that come from? Good. Belshazzar was made. I'm getting confused right now. Belshazzar had calculated the 70 years from the time of the ascent of Nebuchadnezzar to power. And the Jews hadn't been redeemed. If we hadn't been redeemed, what does that mean? We're not going to be redeemed. God has rejected us. But there are verses throughout the Torah, we say it in the Kiddush every Friday night, that this is an eternal covenant between us and God. Eternal covenant precludes the possibility of any of these replacements or those who claim to be the new Israel to have replaced the Jewish people. So he thought the 70 years were up, and he took out the vessels of the temple because now we could use them with impunity, nothing to worry about. And the handwriting on the wall, which was read by Daniel, Mana Mana Taka Luparas, you've taken the vessels, you will be destroyed. That night he was killed. Achashverosh said he miscalculated. I will calculate correctly. Because there were two different stages of the exile. There was the exile of the 10 tribes, and then there was the actual destruction of the temple and the exile of the 2 tribes that comprised the kingdom. Right? Are you familiar with this? The kingdom splitting? David was the United Kingdom. Shlomo's United Kingdom. Shlomo's son Rehoboam became, after the death of Shlomo, was approached by the people. They said, why don't you tone down the kingdom a little bit? Your father Solomon was incredible, world renowned, and therefore the taxes were high. Maintaining that kingdom was very expensive. Let's tamper it down a little bit. He rejected their advice, and 10 tribes said, thanks, but no thanks. Yes. 10 tribes said thanks, but no thanks, and the kingdom split. Okay. Now, years and years and years later, the king of close to 400 years later, the kingdom of Israel is sent into exile first, followed by years later, 11 years later, I believe, the kingdom of Judah. So Achashverosh calculated the end of the 70 years and said, hey, they haven't been redeemed, they're not going to be redeemed. And through this massive party, which we hear about in the beginning of the reading of Megillat Esther, the scroll, the book of Esther that's read on the holiday of Purim, he also had miscalculated. And he wasn't killed that night, but his wife Vashti was killed that night, and events were set in motion, not that night, but Vashti was killed as a result of that party, and events were set in motion for the redemption that followed afterwards. It was 11 years later that we actually returned to the land of Israel. And that started, right? So that was the 70 years, and that started the second Commonwealth. Who led us back into the land of Israel for the second Commonwealth? Ezra. Good. Ezra, the books of Ezra and Nehemiah speak about that. The second temple stood for how long? 420 years. First temple, 410. Second temple, 420 years. And that was during the time of the second temple that the rabbinic holiday of Hanukkah took place. We had a rededication of the temple in the middle, but ultimately it was destroyed. On which date was it destroyed? Once again, on Tisha B'Av, on the 9th day of Av. What happened on the 9th day of Av, going back to biblical times? The Meraglim. Explain, please.
The spies.
Good. The spies returned with their horrific report about the land of Israel, and we all started to cry. And that became the night destined for crying, for tears. Right? If we don't appreciate the land of Israel, until we fully appreciate it, we don't hold on to it. On our calendar, not right, what year was the destruction of the second temple?
On our calendar?
Yeah. What year did it take place? I believe the year 73 of the Common Era. Yeah. The year 73. Okay. Sorry?
That's why I said 70, because I was thinking 70.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Tisha B'Av is our day of national mourning. Okay? And next week we'll go through more of the details of Tisha B'Av itself. Hi, son. Right? Next week we'll go through more of the details of Tisha B'Av itself. But we have these gradually bringing us into this mode, into this mindset of this mourning. And we discussed before, I think, that when it comes to personal mourning, we gradually diminish it, right? It starts off with 7 days of mourning for the closest relatives. Which relatives do we come in Avil for?
Mother, father.
Good.
Grandparents.
Nope. There's seven relations for which we become a mourner. 2 up a generation, mother, father. 2 down a generation, son, daughter. 3 on our generation, meaning sister, spouse. Okay? Those are the 7 relations for which we have our avelut, we have our mourning. There it works that we work our way down, more intense the first 7 days, then less intense for the 30 days, and then for parents it extends for a full year, but again less intense once we get to the full year. Here instead we are ramping it up. We're ramping it up starting with the 3 weeks. That started about 2 weeks, a little under 2 weeks ago. Okay, that started the 3 weeks. What restrictions did we have and that started on which date? 17th of Tammuz. What occurred on the 17th of Tammuz biblically and in relation to the temple? Biblically, what occurred on the 17th of Tammuz? Moses came down Mount Sinai, saw the sin of the golden calf, and shattered the tablets. And in relation to Jerusalem, what was the main event that took place on the 17th of Tammuz? The walls of Jerusalem were breached, not by the first temple, there was not the same date, but by the second temple. We focus on the second temple because we are still in the exile from that destruction of the second temple. Right? And we have been, we go to the Kotel, we go to the Western Wall when we're in Israel. Right? We go, right? When we go to Israel, right? So the great place that we go to is the Western Wall. We don't call it the Wailing Wall. That's a term that the non-Jews have attributed. We call it the Western Wall, the Kotel HaMa'aravi. And we have a big celebration in Israel. One of the Israeli holidays, we'll call it, the more modern Israel holidays, is Yom Yerushalayim, is the day that we, in 1967 war, that we returned to Jerusalem. Until then, even though in 1948, part of the peace agreement, it wasn't a peace agreement, but the cessation of war with Jordan and with others was that there would be freedom of religion and Jews would be able to go visit the Kotel, the Western Wall. That never happened. On the contrary, when Jordan was in control of that whole area from 1948 to 1967, Mount Olives, one of the ancient Jewish cemeteries, was desecrated. The stones were taken to be used in latrines. The synagogues were blown up. And right, recently we have rebuilt the Ramban's synagogue and other synagogues that were there that were destroyed from 1948 to 1967. And no Jews were allowed to go to the Kotel HaMa'aravi, to the Western Wall. So we celebrate. It's a wonderful day. However, there are many that say having all this crazy dancing at the Kotel is not really an appropriate way of celebrating. It's certainly a cause of celebration, but it's not an appropriate way of celebrating. Why? Because right behind that wall is a mosque built on the ruins of our temple, right? La Havdalla, or perhaps we can compare it. If a soldier died in battle, right? We have boys who are still being held in Gaza, soldiers, and they're holding on to the bodies. When the bodies will be returned, we'll be very appreciative and thank God and give them a proper burial, right? There'll be this sense of completion, of closure, that we have the bodies and we can bury it, but it's not going to be a cause of great singing and dancing. So the Kotel is that remnant, but it's a place to gather for tefillah, for prayers, and it's an incredible experience. When you go there on a Friday night, you have Jews of all stripes and colors from all over the world, all converging there, and it is absolutely beautiful. Shavasa B'Tammuz, that started the 3 weeks. And from that point, we haven't been getting haircuts or trimming, things like that. Now we're ramping it up with the start of the month of Av. Now, just an important point to realize. What does Av mean? Father. So what does that tell us? If the month wherein tragedies took place, is named Av, Father. What does that tell us, guys? What do you think?
He's in control.
He's in control, yes.
He hasn't forgotten.
Hasn't forgotten, yes.
He's the source, so it's who it's from and who you go to.
It's who it's from and who we go to. Good. I want one more layer. What does a parent do?
Discipline.
Disciplines with compassion and love. So we see all of these events that took place, and there have been quite a few, right? As I'm sure I said to each and every one of you as you've been contemplating conversion, right? Are you sure you want to do this? Right? Now we've got a difficult past over here. Right? It hasn't been, smooth sailing. Right? Right? Do you really want to have a target? Right? For some perhaps another target, right? On your head over here. Right? But we view it as Av, as a father who at times needs to discipline, but it's always done out of love. And it's all being done to lead us and guide us to that ultimate point of redemption. What we say in our Aleinu after each davening, Yakiru v'yedu kol yoshvei tevel. All the inhabitants of the world will know. Ki lecha tichra kol berach. That to you, everyone, all knees should bow. Tishava kol hashon. Every tongue should utter its praises. And it is that road, that difficult road to get to that point. So once again, Friday is Rosh Chodesh Av. Friday is the start of the month of Av. Friday is when the 9 days begins. Okay? For Ashkenaz, for Sephardim, it is far, far less. Especially this year, it's basically no restrictions whatsoever all the way until Tisha B'Av. Because they start with the week wherein Tisha B'Av falls out. And Tisha B'Av this year falls out on a Sunday. Well, on a Shabbat off to a Sunday. So according to them, right, there are two different approaches, but there is no week wherein Tisha B'Av falls out. So basically, besides the fast on Tisha B'Av, they don't have the whole run-up to it. We B'nai Ashkenaz do. We have a serious run-up. So what changes on Friday, and what things should be done before Friday in preparation for those changes? Okay, good. We don't wear new garments. We don't wear freshly laundered garments. Similar to who? To what? A mourner. Right? A mourner during the 7 days of mourning, basically the garments that were worn, we're talking about outer garments, not undergarments we change. Okay? And they can be freshly laundered. Right? We don't do laundry during the 9 days, but if we do our laundry before the 9 days begins, right? And those garments we could and should wear freshly laundered undergarments, right? Okay. But besides that, a mourner also would change the undergarments. But the shirt that was torn, or the dress, right, and the pants or skirt, whatever, right, that's what the person wears all 7 days. Here we don't need to wear the same garments all 9 days, but we don't wear new garments. We don't wear freshly laundered garments. So what one can do and should do in preparation for that is wear a few shirts, a few outfits, right? A few pairs of slacks, whatever it is, dresses, whatever it is. Wear it for 10, 15 minutes and then put it back in the closet. And that way, it is not freshly laundered. We don't do laundry now with little kids, right? Right, where things can get a little bit out of hand, right? If one's not using disposable diapers, using washable diapers, right? But for little kids, we can, right? You don't need to worry about your little ones, okay? Your little ones, yeah, right? Jaden, right? Layla, right? They should be in on this. From London down, it's okay, yeah, right? And chances are you'll need to be doing some laundry for the little kids. They go through things fast and furious. Yeah, so be it. Okay? Right? This also applies to bedding, right? So you'd want to wash your sheets or whatever that you normally do before the 9 days begin, right? And that way, and sleep in it, sleep for one night, and then, right, it'll need to carry on through to till after Tisha B'av. Right? When I was in Israel post high school and I was dating Natalie, so we were out one night. She said, "I have to get back on time." And I said, "Oh, you get back a little bit late, not such a big deal." She said, "No, if I get back late, then I can't. They won't give me new sheets. They want new sheets." And I was waiting for her to finish the sentence, because like boys in yeshiva is like, what? You change your sheets, like you wash sheets, like that was a whole new concept. I was like, wow, people do that. Why? You're not wearing it, But yeah. So am I right? Right? Tremendous. Like okay. It's I don't know. It's I don't know. Maybe it's just me and every other guy that I knew. I don't know. But yeah. So but yes, Liddell.
Are husband and wife allowed to sleep in the same bed?
Not on the night of Tisha B'av. Okay? Not on the night of Tisha B'av. Okay? We have the laws of family purity that a husband and wife will separate while the wife is having her period until after, right? Now they will study that with all those who will need that, right? I'll go with the men, right? But basically, when a woman has a period, so until the period stops, and then 7 clean days, and then the mikvah, and during that time, husband and wife sleep in separate beds. But on Tisha B'av and on Yom Kippur, those are 2 nights where it's as if there is that level of separation between a husband and wife. That Tisha B'av has a number of restrictions besides just not eating and drinking, and one of them is marital relations. And but we actually would separate the beds or sleep in separate beds at that point. But we'll get to that right next week for the laws of Tisha B'av itself.
Don't forget to tell us who gets the master bed.
That is very true. In Israel, we had the rooms were much smaller in Israel, so we had a queen size bed and a mattress that stood up against the wall. And when necessary, my queen got the queen size bed, and I got the mattress that popped onto the floor, and that's where I slept. So men, keep that in mind. That is, I always say, this is a very, very sexist religion. We do everything for the women. Right? The men are absolutely second-class citizens when it comes to all these things. The Gemara says, "Umechabda yoter migufo," that a man must honor his wife more than he honors himself. Yeah, more than himself. Yeah. Okay. So one aspect that we have is the laundry aspect, the new clothing, freshly laundered garments. You also won't bring stuff to the dry cleaner, right? And even though they'll work on it and you'll pick it up after Tisha B'Av. You don't do laundry during the night, right? Right? Now, normally laundry is not done until the 10th of Av, the day after Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, midday. Okay? That's because the temple started to burn on the 9th of Av, continued through the 10th of Av. The fast day was established on the 9th of Av, but we have certain restrictions that remain until midday, noontime, halachic mid. What is halachic noontime? What does that mean, Rabbi? What is halachic noontime? Halachic midday. What is that? I'm glad I asked. Yes.
Counting from sundown?
Yes. Counting from either sunrise to sunset and getting the midpoint, or going from the morning, from dawn until the stars come out, right? That middle point is halachic. So is chatzot. Chatzot means chatzi, half. Chatzot is midday. It could be chatzot is the midpoint. It could be midnight or midday. But neither of them come out at 12 o'clock a.m. or p.m. Right? It's the halachic midday. And I've shown you guys. It's on my phone I'm using now. But you have the Cal J, the Jewish calendar, right? Free app, which gives you all of these halachic times. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource. Okay. This year, since Tisha B'Av is in fact pushed off until the 10th of Av, so therefore, once Tisha B'Av ends, that night already, Sunday night, when it will end, which is a week from this Sunday night, in other words, right, 12 days from here, whatever it is. So then right away, one can do laundry. Okay. So one of the restrictions that we have of the 9 days is is new garments, laundry, wearing freshly laundered garments. Good. Another restriction of now, and that does not apply on Shabbat. On Shabbat, we wear a nice shirt, a nice suit, whatever we normally wear on Shabbat, that's what we wear on Shabbat, even during the 9 days, even on next Shabbat, not this Shabbat, which is the start of the 9 days. The 9 days starts on Friday. So this Shabbat is the second day of Av. Even next Shabbat, which is actually Tisha B'Av, actually the 9th of Av. But nevertheless, we don't have any of those restrictions, and we wear regular, freshly laundered shirts, suits, outfits, whatever it is that one normally wears on Shabbat. Okay. Next of the restrictions of the 9 days.
Wash your hands fully.
No, that's only on Tisha B'Av. Okay. Washing, bathing, swimming. Okay. Literal, we can, in the morning, we wash our hands the ritual way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can wash your hands normally, but we don't go swimming for pleasure, right? In camp, you would have instructional swim, but you would not have general free swim, okay? And also you minimize your bathing, okay? Which means you make your bathing a little bit, right? We are, the Gemara discusses the concept of an istinus. An istinus is a very, very finicky person, right? In our world, there are people, if they don't bathe every day, they feel that they're crawling out of their skin, right? So, right? And we feel dirty, right? Unless we're, right? So for us, if a person is used to doing that and feels dirty otherwise, so then the person can bathe, but we would minimize the luxuriousness of our bathing, right? The water would not be as hot, and it will be a shorter duration of a shower, bath, whatever it is that one does. Okay? Once again, this does not apply when we're getting ready for Shabbat. Okay, on Shabbat, right? I mean, we would still minimize somewhat, but we should certainly bathe in preparation for Shabbat. Good. So swimming, bathing, tampering that down, and that also is like in Avel. A mourner also does not bathe during that week of Shiva. Why is it called Shiva? 7. Shiva is Hebrew for Shiva, 7. Right, for those 7 days of mourning. Sitting, Shiva is the term, right? The person sits on a lower stool. On Tisha B'Av itself, we'll get to that next week, we will be sitting on a lower stool up until midday on Sunday. But at night, when we hear Megillat Eicha, we hear the reading of Lamentation. That's one of the 5 Megillot, 5 scroll books. We read one of them on the holiday of Sukkot, one of them holiday of Pesach, one of the holiday of Shavuot, one of them on Purim, and Eicha, Lamentations, written by Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah the prophet, about the destruction that we read on the night of Tisha B'Av. That, right, and we're going to be sitting outside with flashlights. It is a whole darkened area that we do it in. Saturday night, okay? Not this Saturday night, next Saturday night. The way we work the schedule here is we're going to be davening mincha early in the afternoon, as early as we can, which is a half hour after Chatzot. At about 1:30, we'll be davening mincha. So we're going to have our usual Shabbat morning, our regular Shabbat Kiddush luncheon. At 1:30, we're going to daven mincha and then go home. There's no shalosh shudas, sudash lishit, because you have to stop eating before sunset. Right? So you'll need to eat before then, and then we will reconvene in the shul for Mariv once Shabbos has ended, about 15 minutes after Shabbos ends. Then everyone can drive to shul. We'll reconvene over here for Mariv, and then for the reading of Eicha. Okay.
Studying Torah, Rabbi.
That's only on Tisha B'Av. Okay, that's only on Tisha B'Av. So far we have the garments, whether it's new garments, whether it's freshly laundered garments, whether it's doing laundry. We have the minimized bathing, swimming, etc. And also, what do we have? No meat or wine. Okay, no meat or wine. That includes chicken. It does not include fish. Anything that makes you fleishig, bisari, right? All meat, poultry, we do not eat during the 9 days. And wine. The exception for that is Shabbos. On Shabbos, both this Shabbos and also the Shabbos, which is actually Tisha B'Av, that we eat, and we eat normally. Right? That's why we're having a barbecue Wednesday night, right? Before the 9 days begin, right? We said, yeah, Friday is when it begins, yeah. So Thursday night, Friday is when it begins. So no meat or poultry for those 9 days. What do we do about Havdalla? Now, Havdalla is always an in-between sort of thing, right? It's Shabbos related, right? Right? Havdalla is what we do at the end of Shabbat. We have a candle, we have besamim, we have spices, we have a cup of wine, and we make these different blessings to separate between Shabbos and the rest of the week. Okay? This Tisha B'Av, we're not going to make Havdalla that Saturday night, going in. We're not going to make Havdalla. We're just going to make the blessing over fire. That's the only blessing that we are going to make. And then we'll make an abbreviated Havdalla Sunday night after the fast before we can go ahead and eat. Okay? But what do we do with Havdalla this Saturday night? Right? Because we make Havdalla over wine or grape juice. What do we do with that?
You do it with wine, grape juice, but don't drink it. You give it to a minor.
Okay, good. You give it to a minor to drink. Good. If there is no minor to drink, right, then you would drink it. Okay? So if you don't have a minor in the house, right, so then whoever's making Havdalla would drink it. But otherwise, we give it to a minor to drink. Okay? Shabbos, no problem with wine and meat and poultry. During the week, no wine, meat, or poultry. Good. Anything else? 9 days. Okay, so things like that, like construction, if you're doing construction, it's not really needed construction, house painting, things like that, you would wait for after the 9 days, right? Big business deals, right? Ideal to wait after 9 days. But if it's something that you have an opportunity, a house is coming up for sale, right? And, so then you don't, if there's a concept called the davar ha'aved, which means that you will lose out in a significant manner, so that you're not meant to do. So then you would go ahead and complete that deal. Planting, right? A beautiful garden, all those types of things, one would wait until after the 9 days. Okay, good? Clear? Okay, good. Let's do some more Shabbos with some time that we have left. Okay, we're on page 231. Okay, housework. Okay, and with this book, right, for David and Mary who are joining us, this is a good book to go through. Okay, it goes through the 39 Malachot of Shabbos. Malacha is defined as creative activity. Okay? Why don't we want to create on Shabbat? Good. Right? In Judaism, we do our beliefs. It's not simply, I believe, right? We do our beliefs. So Shabbos is our belief that there is a creator, that God created the world. I always like to say that when I was in high school, I was being taught the constant state theory. And that was, I remember my science teacher saying, listen, guys, I don't know what your rabbis are telling you in the morning, but I'm telling you science. The world was always here, constant state. Until they discovered that it's ever expanding. So if it's ever expanding, then at some point, if we put it into reverse, what happens? It's ever contracting, until we get to what is called the Big Bang. So science has come around to that point of beginning, right? They have the first word of the Torah now, which is Bereshit, in the beginning. They're still working on the second and third word, God created. They got the Big Bang, they don't yet have the Big Banger. Okay, progress. So the way that we do our belief in God as a creator is that God created for the 6 days, and then he stopped creating. So therefore, on Shabbos, we stop creating. Therefore, even though it's not work to hit a light switch, but using our mastery to alter the world around us is an act of creation. That's what God was doing during those 6 days. And therefore, that is what we abstain from doing. So here, the first part of the book goes through the 39 Malachot. Some of them are relevant to our weekly Shabbat observance. Most prevalent is, what's of the 39 is the most relevant to our weekly Shabbos observance? Borer is up there. Borer is selecting, but I would say cooking. Right? Cooking is pretty central to our observance. So he first went through the 39, giving some ideas of them, and then he goes through the actual applications of day-to-day, or actually week-to-week Shabbos observance. So let's take a look at page 233. Okay, use of soaps, pastes, and ointments. A bar of soap or soap paste may not be used on Shabbos, as this involves the malacha of scraping, which was malacha 29 above. The only soap that may be used is a thin liquid soap. Okay, see further details in chapter 6, where washing on Shabbos is discussed. Okay, so you want to wash your hands, right, after using the restroom? You should wash your hands after using the restroom. Just use liquid soap when you're washing your hands. Okay, you want to brush your teeth at night? You should be brushing your teeth at night, right? But you don't want to use toothpaste. You want to use either a liquid toothpaste, or most simply what I do, I use mouthwash, right? And it does a very, very fine job. All kinds of pastes are prohibited on Shabbos: toothpaste, shoe polish, cleaning paste, hand cream. All of those are going to be issues, okay? You want to wash some dishes on Friday night, stuff that you either will be using them again on Shabbos, or you want to get them out of the way so that it will not be detracting from your Shabbos experience. You need to use liquid soap. You also need to use a sponge that is okay for Shabbos, which does not absorb. So they have special Shabbos sponges, right? They sell them. Well, it's like a scrub, not a scrubby, like a steel.
Plastic.
Yeah, like a plastic ball. They sell them also not just for Shabbos, right? But that doesn't actually absorb, but it serves the purpose well. In the event of a wound or illness, a Rav should be consulted regarding how to apply ointments, since they must be applied differently on Shabbos than on weekdays. We spoke about diaper rashes, right? So a kid has a diaper rash, right? You got to take care of that, But you don't want. So normally you take some very thick cream. What's it called? Name something. Desitin. That was it. That was like so thick, right? And you spread it over, and that becomes like this bulletproof, shield on that little rump over there that nothing can affect it, right? So on Shabbos we can start rubbing it on, right? But I think I mentioned to you guys, right? If you put a bunch in the diaper and then put the diaper on, and then he or she starts moving around, right? So then it does the job. Okay. Yes.
You mentioned deodorant once before.
Yes.
Can you clarify that again?
Yes.
I realize they also sell on roll-on deodorant. So is that appropriate? Is it necessary?
Yes. So on Shabbos, the different sticks, roll-on, gel, issue of this, right? What one can utilize on Shabbos is spray on. Okay, the spray deodorants, which aerosols. Yeah, you don't find them as much anymore. Yeah, yeah. But the spray-on deodorants work.
So the roll-on though is using a very thin liquid that just has like this plastic ball that rotates. So it's not like the gel, where the gel is thick and it like so.
Yeah, but I think even the roll-on, right? You're like pushing it onto you. Yeah. So you're asking, maybe I think you're asking a good question. Is that so different than liquid soap, right? But whereas liquid soap, the idea is not to apply it.
Yeah.
Right? Here, the idea is to apply it, and that's really getting into the idea of processing the wool, the hide and stuff that we have over there in those laws.
So another clarifying question then.
Yes.
Sunscreen, you would also do aerosol, not the.
Correct. Yeah. And you wouldn't, after normally sunscreen you spray it on and then you rub it on, you would not do that. Yeah. Okay, 234, washing dishes. While washing dishes on Shabbos, one must take care not to do any act of wringing or squeezing. Okay. Cloths and sponges may not be used for cleaning purposes, nor may steel wool be used. I guess the steel wool that he's talking about is when it's very, very, very tightly, right? As opposed to like those rings.
Yeah.
The possibility of absorbing.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine.
Yeah, well, to me, steel wool is more like that spongy than like what we use for the dishes. It's more of a coarser, I guess.
Yeah. But there is, let me see what we have in the kitchen. Show you. Give me 1 second. Sorry.
Good, how are you? I'm Esther.
I remember I married.
Yes, how are you?
And David.
Hi, David. Nice to meet you. So crazy. I'm good friends with the.
You're what? I heard what?
I heard there was a boyfriend across the
Exhibit
that's what I think of.
Yeah, that's exactly. That sounds good.
Exhibit A. Okay, so that would be okay. All right. They also sell like plastic, right? Essentially when they sell the plastic, you can get a red one and a green one or a blue one, so you have for your meat side, for your dairy side, right? Yeah. And they also sell, and this you have to go to one of the, like OC Kosher probably has it. I think they sell.
I'm out of the market. I don't know.
Okay, but they sell. It looks like a sponge, right? But it doesn't actually absorb, right? Right. So these are all available. Okay, cloths and sponge may not be used. Okay, one may not use a bar of soap or a cleaning paste, but you could use the liquid. Okay, it is advisable to seek practical guidance on the permissible manner of washing dishes on Shabbos. Okay, so when it comes to washing dishes on Shabbos, you have to be careful when it comes to the soap, careful when it comes to the sponge, and careful when it comes to the correct. Okay, well the sponge is wringing. But another serious thing to watch out for is the hot water, right? Unless you are in a large apartment area, right? And you're sharing the hot water with many other apartments. What is the problem in using hot water on Shabbos? What did you say, Shmoni? Well, depends, yes. If you have instant hot water, so then the minute you turn on the hot water, that is firing up and cooking. And if you don't have instant hot water, it's cooking, because what happens is the water comes out of your faucet. It's coming out of your hot water boiler. Is that what it's called? Yeah. And what happens? Cold water goes in right away and is getting cooked up by the hot water that's in there. Okay, So we don't use the hot water on Shabbos. If you've got a hot water, right, and if you have, let's say, like we have over here for the cold water dispenser also has a hot water, that's also a problem because as soon as you take out some of the hot water, cold water goes from the big tank on top into that little hot heated area and gets cooked up. If you have a hot water urn, that is okay. Why is that okay? You cooked it up before Shabbos and there's no refilling that takes place. You're just taking out hot water. Now you have less hot water there. There's no cold water that goes in to replenish. Okay, so those are the things that one must watch out for when it comes to washing dishes on Shabbos.
Another thing we're so used to is push the food disposable. Because we're so used to like cleaning dishes, sometimes we have 10, 15 people at home. And it's so hard. Sometimes I'm just like going to the button, I'm just like, I can't stop myself.
So that's important. We can't use that. We just call it an incinerator, whatever they call it. Right. So you have to be careful, right? Certainly on Shabbos, even though we might be in the habit of washing dishes, you just go and right on Shabbos you need to be very careful to not to do that. In general, if there's something that you often do, right? When we have kids around, so we tape the lights, the light switches, right? Because that's something that you forget and often you do automatically. So something that one does automatically and it's hard not to do. So then it's good to have some sort of a safeguard. What we have here in the shul, I have in my house also, are these little magnetic plates that go over the light switch, right? That makes it that protects it. Yes.
Just a scenario. So what if you act, so say you're Jewish, so you're obligated to us. Because if you're not, then you can correct the mistake. But say like you accidentally turn on the garbage disposal mechanism, which is like a switch. It just stays like that. Or like,
okay,
like,
so
because a light you just leave on, but
yeah,
the garbage disposal.
Yeah, it's gonna be well, you won't forget it another time after that. First of all, it's probably gonna break. By the time Shabbos is over, I don't think that. I don't think they're not made to go 23 hours. That's for sure, right? So.
You're supposed to enjoy Shabbos too, so that would be like almost annoying.
Yes, you are supposed to enjoy Shabbos, but that doesn't allow me to break Shabbos in order to enjoy Shabbos. If I'll enjoy Shabbos by watching a movie, I'm not going to put the movie on, right? And they'll tell you an interesting story. There was a great rabbi in Bnei Brak, a great Talmud by the name of this site, Yisroel Yaakov Kanievsky. Right? Bnei Brak is on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. It is hot. It is sticky. It is humid in the summer. And the houses get hot, humid, and sticky. And someone offered to put in air conditioning for the stifler, for the family, which would have been a very, very beautiful chesed, act of kindness. The stifler refused. Why? Because for another reason, right? There are those who don't use the regular electricity on Shabbos in Israel. There's nothing wrong in using electricity on Shabbos. Right? You leave the lights on. You can't turn the lights on and off. The lights on, or you have it on a Shabbos clock, on a timer, goes on and off, perfectly fine. The problem is that if a Jew desecrated the Shabbos, you are not allowed to get benefit from a Jew's desecrating of the Shabbos. And in Israel, who runs the electric company there? Jews do. Who's constantly adjusting which generators are on and off in order to have the right amount of electricity for the peak hours, the non-peak hours? Jews are doing that. So you are benefiting by using electricity in Israel. You are benefiting from a Jew breaking Shabbos. This is a strict opinion that was adopted by the Chazon Ish in Bnei Brak, and the disciple was a brother-in-law to the Chazon Ish. Now, generally, people will use electricity in Israel. What is the reasoning for that? Well, if someone is sick and and turn the light to that sick person, then I could also get benefit from that light, right? Because it was done for a person who was sick. And right, if it's life in danger, then you're allowed to do that. You must break Shabbos if a person's life is in danger. Well, they supply the hospitals also. So they're doing it for the hospitals, and we're just going along for the ride. Okay? Without going into too much detail, that's the lay of the land with electricity in Israel. Not relevant to us over here, but very relevant in Israel, very, very relevant to the Stifler. So the Stifler thanked the person, I'm sure, but did not take them up on a very gracious, generous offer. Why? Because he said he does not want to have a situation that the house is nice and comfortable during the week, and then come Shabbos, it's hot, sticky, and humid. Right? So yes, we're supposed to enjoy Shabbos. For that reason, he made sure that he didn't have it during the week also, so it wouldn't be pleasant during the week and unpleasant on Shabbos. So if one forgot and hit that in sinker and hit that garbage disposal in the sink, one should not turn it off. Yeah.
Maybe the children wouldn't notice.
Do their thing.
Yes.
In the same way that we turn lights on Shabbos, couldn't they have turned a fan on before Shabbos and left it on?
I'm sure they do. Well, no, electricity. If according to that opinion, you don't use the electricity at all on Shabbos, because the electricity, even though you had it on before Shabbos, but how is that electricity getting to you? From the generators. This one is turned off, this one's turned on, this one's added on, this one, right? There's a constant shuffling for energy efficiency to not be producing more than is needed. Right? So even though you might have turned it on before Shabbos, but one, according to that view, one would be benefiting from Shabbos desecration of other Jews, and that we don't want. Okay, we will call it over here, my friends. Next week will be regular, Tuesday night, regular time. The week after that, I'm going to move it to Monday night, if that's okay with all of you. I won't be able to do Tuesday night, but I could do Monday night. So next week it's regular Tuesday. The week after that, August 8th, I think it is, we'll have it for Monday night instead of the Tuesday.
8:15?
Yeah. Actually, we're going to be getting a little bit earlier, right? By next week, we'll already be 8:10, meaning as davening gets earlier. Remember, we used to be 7:30, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we had to push it off because davening got so late, right? So I'll be happy making it a little bit earlier as we go along. So next week, I think Mincha is probably 7:30, so we'll start at 8:10. Okay, we'll gradually bring it back. Okay, good. Okay, good night, everybody. So hard to see you.
Good night.
Nice crew over here.
Good night. Good night.